beautiful. Hey, good morning, everybody, and welcome to the Noisy Basement Files, my multimedia podcast where every week we reminisce on the TV, movies, and music we love from years past. My name is Nate. Thank you so much for joining me. And this week for File 5, we're going to 2013. We're going to look at the dramatic thriller Prisoners starring Hugh Jackman and Jake Gyllenhaal. There's some great acting and suspense here, and this one was a surprise for me. I hadn't heard of it or seen it until this year, so let's dive in. I think this is my fourth time trying to do this show. The third time, I went for about a half an hour and realized that my mixer stopped recording. So that's fun. What are you going to do? It's technology. It's almost kind of amazing that it didn't happen more times within these first 4 episodes. But how's everybody doing? I am doing great. These early mornings are not getting any easier, but I have no other time I can really be doing this, so it just kind of is what it is. And I'm just going to keep doing it because it's fun to do. And that's why we do things, because they're fun to do. But I'm excited talking about this movie. When I saw it very recently, I was totally blown away. Just totally blown away. It's long, it's very stressful, and the acting is great. There are some great performances here, and I'm excited to talk about it. We got it from the library, where we get a lot of our stuff. Netflix, they don't always have what you're looking for, but you can go to the library and you can see everything kind of at once. There's no scrolling, there's no clicking, there's no trailers. You just kind of go off of box art and stuff. This one was suggested by somebody that my wife knows. We both watched it together, and I was just completely blown away. I thought it was absolutely fantastic, and I figured since it was fresh in my mind, why not talk about it? But I spent a lot of time over the last week trying to think about things to do for the show, because I just don't think that it's quite long enough. And I thought one of the first things would be to just kind of shoot the snot at the beginning of the episode before talking about the media at hand for the week, and that, and talking about things that I've been watching and music that I've been listening to and just things that have been kind of going on. Last week I dealt with my first technical mishap, and it was when I was recording the Jackass episode, and when I went to cut the video and edit the audio and stuff, the last minute or so of the video had been corrupted. I didn't see anything while I was doing it, so who knows, maybe this whole video won't be working either. But the last minute or so of the video was just completely corrupted. I had to cut it off. When it played in iMovie, it was just black screen with like a static bar across the top, and then just noise, loud, horrible noise. And there was no warning for it. I didn't see any blip on the computer screen. It was just there, so I had to cut it out. But it was a good learning experience. I was able to put something else in its place, and it was what it was. And this is what happens when you're using old equipment, because you don't want to buy new equipment. But that's the thing that's so cool about podcasting, is that the barrier for entry is very low. If you have a semi-modern computer and a microphone, if you can get your hands on some kind of interface, like a cheaper interface even, the camera's already on the computer. You can just plug into the interface, get everything set up the way that you need it, and that's it. The barrier for entry is very, very low. It's not like being in a band or trying to, make a movie, which I suppose you could, it would be very difficult and the quality would be very poor. But even like with a podcast, it's usually just a person sitting and talking. And so all you need is, really, even then, all you need is a microphone. I'm just recording the video because I wanted to learn to do both of these things at once. That's why I started to do this, because I wanted to learn I wanted to get better at editing audio, because I thought it would help. Once I got good enough at it, I thought it would help make when I was making music later on. And I wanted to edit video. I don't know whether anyone will watch this or not. I don't expect anyone to watch it, but it would be certainly nice for somebody to watch and listen. And I don't think we've had that yet. But we're only 5 episodes in, so I guess we'll see what happens. But I have been trying to figure out the best way to just keep my intake of media constant, just to be fresh for the show. And I'm probably thinking way too far out here, but that's part of the reason why I wanted to do TV, movies, and music, because I like those things, but it also gives you more to talk about. And but at the same time, I've only watched and listened to so much stuff. And eventually that well runs dry. And even if I watched nothing else or listened to nothing else forever, I'd have enough to go on for a while. But just my mind is in this famine state all the time. Just I'm like worried about everything, and what, I was like, oh, what happens 10 years from now? I'm gonna run out of stuff to talk about. It's like, well, I guess you just got to start watching stuff. And that's kind of where the idea of this episode came, because I just watched the movie recently, and I'm like, well, it was really good, and now that it's fresh in my mind, I might as well talk about it. And on top of that, I'd like to, before doing a show, revisit the subject matter, because the first few episodes, I was able to kind of scoot by without having to do that, just because I had taken those things in so many times. But trying to get into the schedule but that it, of course, involves generally planning a few weeks out, which I am doing okay at, but like I'd like to know probably a month, at least a month ahead, what I'm going to do, because then I can plan around what I'm going to watch, notes that I'm going to take. I have to make the thumbnails for the audio and the video files, because doing all that stuff all at once is just kind of annoying. And but it's fun. It's fun learning these things, what's important, what's not. And another thing would be my note taking is absolutely abysmal. It is subpar at best, and that's how it's always been, even in school. I just feel like the notes I take notes just for the sake of taking notes, and they're not useful. They offer no benefit. There's like a few bullet points on there. I would almost do better at just kind of sitting and meditating and thinking on the subject about what I'm going to say, and then going at it that way, because it's like when I have the notes, it's like I either read them verbatim, which is not really okay, or maybe it is, I just feel like it's not, or I just don't use them at all. Like, I like having some brief bullet points on the media at hand, the people involved, maybe some of the other things that they did, and then a brief synopsis of what it is. I don't really know what else to do. But just like doing this, I guess it would just come in time, just doing it again and again and again, and just working out this stuff that works best and not doing the things that don't seem to be working. And same with talking. I don't think I'm a particularly good talker. I don't think I get my points across very well, or form entirely coherent sentences, especially in public. So that's another reason I wanted to do this, is I just feel like if you talk regularly, this is an hour or so a week where I can just spit stuff off of my head. Some of it is planned, obviously, but I'd like to get better at public speaking and just talking in general, because I don't think it's something that I'm very good at. And I think it's a problem a lot of people think that they have. And, because I don't want to make a fool of myself, which is probably what I'm doing right now. But I don't really think that there's a better way to learn something than to just do it again and again and again. That's the problem I have with watching videos on how to do stuff, or like reading books on how to do stuff, is because my brain can't decipher between doing something exactly the way that they say and finding my own way to do it. So I'd rather just find my own way to do it. Like most of the videos online about starting a podcast, they're going to be like, be as narrow as possible, target your audience. If you want to do a knitting podcast about clowns and unicorns, that's the way to go, where it's like as entertaining as a show that would be to listen to. I guess that's just not what I'm interested in. But TVs, movies, music, it's probably too broad. I probably should have just picked one of the things, and maybe it's not too late to change that. But we're gonna go with this format for the foreseeable future until I decide otherwise. But we got the movie from the library, and that was before I get into what I've been watching and listening to. That was the last thing I wanted to talk about, was the library. Don't sleep on your local libraries. You would be amazed what they have. Netflix is great. Hulu's great. Disney's great. Apple TV, not so great. But all those streaming platforms, they have their benefits. But once you start scrolling, it's like searching something up on Google. Once you get to like the second page of something, or the third page of something, when you're looking for a movie to watch in Netflix, once you scroll past a certain point, you're like, I've never heard of any of these. They have quantity. And while a lot of the stuff that they have is great, they don't have the most consistent library. I think a lot of their original programming is really good. I've watched plenty of it. I've watched some of their movies. I think a lot of their shows are better than their movies as far as their original programming goes. But, if you wanted to watch The Sopranos, if you wanted to watch Game of Thrones, I can't think of anything else right now, but there's a lot of really good stuff out there that you can only get on a very specific platform, or you have to get it on physical media, DVD, Blu-ray, that sort of thing. Anyone who's never been to their local library, I'm sure not all libraries are created equal, but like our library, for instance, has so much stuff. Aside from all the books, there's probably 250,000 books in the library. The spatial format in my brain could be slightly off, but there's a lot. There's got to be 3,000 movies. There's got to be 1,000 shows. They have CDs. They have magazines. They have newspapers. And if there's really something that you can't find, they're connected to a bunch of other libraries in the area so that you can request something and they'll just ship it for pickup for free. It's amazing. Through the power of innovation and technology, we have jumped forward about 9 hours. I got home from work to finish the podcast. What an unbelievable change of pace. So I just want to get into a few, what I've been watching and what I've been listening to before we start talking about Prisoners. When I was on vacation a couple of weeks ago, we switched over to T-Mobile from Verizon because we were getting royally ripped off. And T-Mobile just gave us Netflix and Apple TV. So I've been catching up on some Netflix stuff. I haven't explored much Apple TV. It doesn't really seem like they have all that much. But Netflix, we've been using Netflix for years and years, and we just we dropped them some point last year. But I was able to catch up on the last season of Cobra Kai, which is fantastic. I love Cobra Kai. It's so special, and they're not going to be able to do anything like that on TV for a long time. The way everything came together for that show, all of the actors and actresses coming back from the movies, it just really hits that nostalgia button, which is really important for me. It can be cheesy, it can be campy at times, but the episodes are just the right size. They're just the right length for me. Easy to take in. Everything looks great. The stories are cool. The way that they call back to things from the movies. I'm curious to see where it goes. I think they might have made a deal for a couple more seasons, but when that show is over, I would love to do an episode on Cobra Kai. And a couple weeks ago, me and my wife started watching Game of Thrones. Finally, we bit the bullet. Library again. They had the first season. They have almost the whole series at the library, and we're almost done with the first season, and it's good. I'm sure it gets better, and I'm excited to see what happens. On the no movies in the last few weeks, probably. Music-wise, I revisited some. I went back to Bill Wirtz, which I do every few months because he'll put out a song at a time, and I'll just wait a while before I listen to stuff. That way it's almost kind of like getting an EP or an album or something like that from him. And he's great. He's just totally unique. Nobody sounds like him. Really just a good vibe. I went and listened to some older Meshuggah, some Destroy, Erase, Improve, and Chaos Sphere. Love Meshuggah. They were so heavy in the 90s. I mean, they're heavy now. They're without a doubt one of the heaviest bands of all time. Just so, but that sound they had in the 90s, it was just like scary. It's so good, so heavy, great songs, great riffs. And I went back and listened to Fear Inoculum again, Tool's newer album from 2019. And it is so good. It's great. I haven't listened to it nearly as much as their older albums, but I'd like to listen to it a few more times. And the last thing I wanted to talk about before getting into the movie is listening, how we listen to our music. It's different for everybody. Some people listen to it mostly in the car. Some people listen to it on their phones, on speakers. Some people have a big stereo system. I listen to most of my music on these little Bluetooth in-ears that we got they're probably like some Amazon no-name brand that we got for like $10, but they're fine. Sound quality is not great, but I listen to most of my music on those things because I can be doing other things. Unfortunately, this day and age, people just don't have the time to listen to music like they used to. So I'm pretty much almost always doing something while listening to music. Mowing the lawn, doing the laundry, doing the dishes, cleaning, vacuuming, whatever. But because they're rechargeable, so when the batteries die, it goes battery low. And the closer and closer it gets to dying, it does it more and more. And, when I listen to Tool, I like a lot of progressive music. And when I listen to Tool, it's just fun to it's fun to count and try and figure out the measures and stuff like that. The song Fear Inoculum, by the way, the first weird part is in 11, I believe. I'm trying to count up 1, 2, 3, battery low. Oh man, you gotta wait for it to come around again. 1, 2, 3, battery low. It's just like, come on, man, you're killing me. Took me a while to figure that one out in between the battery low. Anyway, that's what I've been up to. So let's get into this movie. This movie was a big surprise for me. It kind of slipped by, and I thought it was awesome. It's really long. It's 153 minutes. That's almost 2.5 hours. And it is very stressful. The whole movie is very stressful. And we'll get into that. But it came out on August 20th, 2013. Some, whatever festival it debuted at. Budget for the movie was $46 million. Box office was $122 million. Directed by Denis Villeneuve. I don't know how you pronounce it. I'm very sorry. Also did Arrival, the newer Blade Runner movie, and the newer Dune movie. Music by Johan Johansson, which is what you heard in the beginning. That was the main theme. Who also did the music for Theory of Everything and also Arrival. So worked with Denis Villeneuve on the Arrival. The movie is very long, and the stressful atmosphere of the film starts right away. There's going to be spoilers here. I'll make sure to put it in the description, but I'm pretty much just going to spoil this whole movie. I'm assuming if you're watching this that you've already seen it, watching this or listening to this. But the story revolves around mainly Hugh Jackman, his character, and Jake Gyllenhaal. Hugh Jackman, who is Keller Dover in the movie. Him and his family, including Grace Dover, played by Maria Bello, and their daughter. I didn't put the actresses for the daughters' names down. The two daughters. They're in some kind of they're at some kind of a get together, I think it's like a Thanksgiving dinner with a local family that they're friends with, the Birches. There's Nancy Birch and Franklin Birch, played by Viola Davis, and Terrence Howard, and their daughter Joy, the Dover's daughter Anne, go off playing and looking for a lost whistle that Anne has lost, and they go missing. This is no more than 10 minutes into the movie. They go missing in a 153-minute movie. But a few minutes before that happens, they are out and about doing things, and there's an RV on the side of the road where they believe there's someone in it, and the driver of the RV becomes suspect number one in the chase to find the girls, and that is Alex Jones, played by Paul Dano. And I thought I'd recognized him from another movie, and I went digging, and I just couldn't figure it out. At first I thought he was one of the band members from Detroit Rock City, because I thought they looked kind of similar, but I was way off on that one. And the case is led by Detective Loki, who is Jake Gyllenhaal's character. He plays a great character in this movie. He plays this awesome detective who's like in the story has like never failed a case, and it's probably kind of gone to his head. He's a little bit pompous. He's kind of an asshole, but he plays the character really, really well. And his dynamic with Hugh Jackman's character, who's just this, distraught father. Alex Jones is caught, but is soon released from custody because there is no evidence in the van of the girls. There's no fight, there's no blood, there's no hair, there's nothing. So within 48 hours or whatever it is, the police chief lets him go. This is after Detective Loki continues the search. He questions Alex Jones and his aunt, who he lives with, Holly Jones, who is a widow and took Alex in when he was a child, which is important later in the movie. One thing I noticed about I don't know where they filmed this, but I loved the atmosphere of the town that they were in. The whole movie was like dark and foggy, and it almost looked like it was raining. And then the houses just had this like really brawny wilderness vibe to them. Those are terrible adjectives, but they reminded me a lot of kind of back roads of where I grew up. Very rural. Everyone was driving trucks. After a handful of when Alex Jones is released from custody, Keller Dover goes and confronts him at the jail as he's being left, and he's whispered something into his ear, which leads him to believe that Alex Jones knows more than it is being led on. And Paul Dano's character, this Alex Jones, I love when actors, because I'm assuming he doesn't sound the way he does in the movie in real life. I love when actors, especially when they're playing someone who's just clearly unhinged, when they just completely change their voice. Obviously, there's Heath Ledger playing the Joker. There was this movie, I think it was Old Grit. Was that the one with Jeff Bridges and Josh Brolin's character? He's playing this toothless Westerner. Here, what are you doing there? And he's just completely transformed. His voice is totally unhinged. And this Paul Dano's character, Alex Jones, he's like, in the story, he basically, it has like a 10-year-old's education level, a 10-year-old's brain, whatever. He's like a child, basically. He doesn't understand anything above like a second or third grade level of understanding, reading, anything like that. And his voice is this high pitched, and he's really quiet, and he doesn't say very much. And I love when actors do that. It just adds so much to the film. And he whispers something to Keller Dover, which leads him to believe that there's more going on here. So Keller stalks him and captures him, and then him and Franklin Birch proceed to basically torture him, and it's pretty brutal. There's not much more going on in the movie than him just like beating the snot out of him. There was they were going to involve he was trying to scare him and involve a hammer and stuff, but he didn't end up doing anything to him. And after failing to get anything out of him, and then Nancy Birch comes, and she tries to get him to tell them where the kids are, she unties him, and then he tries to attack, and it's just this big giant mess. And then eventually Keller Dover builds this isolation box inside a shower bed for him, so he traps him inside. The only opening is this little hole that you can talk through, and the shower is hooked up to be either really, really hot, like boiling hot, or ice cold, and he just goes back and forth, and it's this psychological torture, and he's just like screaming, and it is insanely brutal. And you can watch Hugh Jackman's descent into basically going crazy to try and find out where his daughter is. After a handful of days, when they don't say the girls are dead, but in real life, if people go missing after a certain amount after the first few days, the chances of finding people become exponentially more and more bleak. So the neighborhood is holding this candlelit vigil, and there's this total creep there, and Detective Loki is there and completely spots him right away. He starts to kind of, follow him a little bit, and the guy just darts. And I didn't look up this guy's name. He looked pretty similar to, and anybody who's seen the movie is probably thinking the same thing, but he was a very similar character to the Alex Jones character. Totally unhinged, total creepo, diddler kind of thing. And after a police sketch, Detective Loki finds out where he lives, and this is probably my favorite scene in the movie, when he goes to the guy's house and he knocks on the door, and he's just Jake Gyllenhaal's character is just he's really kind of an asshole, but he knows what he's doing. He knocks on the guy's door. He's like, "Hey man, you live here? Why'd you run away from me the other night?" And the guy's just like, "Oh, I don't know what you're talking about." And it's just great. And then the guy tries to get away, and he just bashes the door in and knocks him out, and handcuffs him. And then this guy has just bins of bloody children's clothes all over his house, with snakes and bloody children's clothes and mazes. And I remember when I first saw the case for the DVD, because that's how we played it on DVD from the library. In the O for the prisoners, it has a maze in it, and this is the first time that comes up. So which would lead you to believe that this is the guy that took the girls, but it ends up being that he's just this like total creep that buys children's clothes at like the local thrift store and covers them in, it ended up being like pig's blood or something like that, and there's like snakes everywhere, and he's just a total freak. The mazes are an important part of the story as far as where the girls are, but before all this is known, they present the clothing to Keller Dover, who identifies some of the clothing to be his girls, and at that point he goes back to where he has Alex Jones trapped, and is able to extract information on it, and it's not really much information, but he gets him to kind of crack a little bit, and he brings up the mazes. And at that point, Joy is found, who is the Burge's daughter. She was found just like wandering the highway or something like that, and they bring her to the hospital. When everybody goes to visit her in the hospital, she is having flashbacks of being trapped because she sees Keller, who earlier in the movie was in Holly and Alex's house, and she recognized them from there because that's where she was trapped. And when she says that, she's like, and you were there, and you were there. And it was an interesting part of the movie because because I'm dumb and I didn't really get it at first. I thought there was going to be this big twist and Keller was going to be the guy that like made them disappear, because if it was a bad movie, that's what they would have done, because there'd be this like weird plot hole, because he was in the house with the family the whole time. But like that's where my brain went initially, and it almost kind of starts to look like that because he jets from the hospital when Loki shows up, and he ends up trying to chase him down. And at that point, he had already been in the abandoned house where he had kept Alex Jones, but he never actually found him there. But he had figured that he was going to go run there anyway, so that's when he went and realized that he was there. But at that point, Keller has gone back to Holly Jones's house, and he's trying to play like the, hey, I'm sorry about what happened earlier. I'm a carpenter. Can I fix your door? He goes in and he's like, I don't want to have to hurt you, but she had the upper hand. She has the gun on him, and at that point, everything in the movie kind of unfolds. She's the one that steals the kids. I forgot about the priest. The Loki, in trying to figure out what's happening with the girls, goes and questions this priest, who he must know personally. I can't remember what the connection was, but he goes in. The guy's just totally passed out on bourbon and stuff. Finds a dead body in his basement, which ends up being the I believe was the husband of husband of Holly Jones. And then when he finds the picture of them in the house, he's got the maze necklace on. You can see him like kind of wince. He's like, oh man, I missed that one. And he's like, darn, where was I? I had to jump back to the priest, because the body was the husband. So she pulls the gun on Keller. This is back at her house, and then she makes him drink this, this stuff that drugs him up, and then they try. And she traps him underneath this Trans Am or whatever it is that they have in their backyard where they had originally kept the girls. And he's like, I'm not going to go in there because you asked me. You're going to have to shoot me. And she's like, no problem. Shoots him in the leg. Finds the lost whistle down there. So Loki figures out what's going on. Ends up back in the house at the Joneses' house. Discovers the aunt, Holly Jones, drugging Anne. And shoots her. He gets shot in the head, and that's a great scene. That's suspense and just stress at its finest, because he's driving as fast as he can to the emergency room. The lighting's all messed up. There's rain on the windshield, and the light's coming in through the windshield, and everything. You have to kind of squint, and he's got blood going into his eye, and you're just like, oh man, he's not gonna make it. And luckily he does. And this whole time after Keller ran away from the hospital, they just think he ran away. He becomes a suspect, and they think that he ran away. The crew is cleaning up the all the stuff going on at the Joneses' house, and there's mannequins and dead bodies and all this weird stuff in the yard, and they go to leave, and right as the movie ends, he starts to hear the whistle, because Keller found the whistle. And it's one of those things where the movie ended, and I'm like, oh, come on, man. It just goes, the screen just goes black. He's like, he hears the whistle, thinks he hears something, and he's like, nah, that's not anything. Hears it again. Nah, that's not anything. And then he hears it again, and then you're like, you're waiting for the next thing to happen, and the screen goes black, and you're just like, oh oh man, come on. But it added to it because the whole movie was just so stressful. It's just stressful scene after stressful scene. Where are the girls? What is going on? And then, the girls are found. Now, where is Keller? And then the movie just ends. So it's like you can put two and two together. They leave a lot to the imagination. You obviously know that if the movie were to have continued, he would have found him under the car, and who knows what would have happened. Would he have gone to jail? Probably, because he was he kidnapped and tortured somebody. That piece I completely forgot about was one of the people that was interviewed when they were trying to figure out where the girls were, was the person that used to live at the house that the RV was parked in front of, which ended up being this old lady that had lived there. Their kid had been, their grandson or whoever it was, had been kidnapped a few decades earlier, which ended up being Alex Jones, and he ends up getting reunited with them at the end. And it was kind of cool because the whole first half, 3/4 of the movie, Alex Jones is the suspect, the bad guy, and really what ends up happening is he was kidnapped by the Joneses 20-something years ago, and he's just kept there the whole time, and his family thinks he's dead. And so that was kind of a cool addition at the end of the movie, the part of the story where he's reunited, and you kind of feel bad for him because he's this full-grown person that has the brain of a 10-year-old, and he is just kind of going along with all of this stuff that his aunt is doing. Doesn't end up even being a blood relative. I'm trying to think if there's anything that any big moments that I forgot. All the acting was so good. I love Hugh Jackman. I'm trying to think of other movies he would have been in around that time, because the whole time he's a carpenter, and it's it almost looks like it's kind of fall, winter time in whatever town that they're in, and he's wearing these big flannel shirts and pants and boots and stuff, but you can tell he's still pretty big in this movie. I mean, he's definitely, if there were a fan service scene and he were to rip his shirt off or something like that, he'd just be bulging with muscle. You can still tell he's this giant guy. But Hugh Jackman is just so great in this movie. I love Hugh Jackman. He's such a great actor. And Jake Gyllenhaal's character, definitely my favorite character in the whole movie. I thought he played a great, I don't know what word it is I'm looking for, but he's clearly a cop, that's a detective that's battling his own inner demons. And I think he plays a really good prick. He's kind of a know-it-all, but he's got this attitude. On Holly Jones, who was the total psycho of the movie, played by Melissa Leo, who I don't recognize from anything, unfortunately. I didn't do much research other than looking up what the characters' names were and who they were played by. But I really liked the atmosphere of the movie. I don't mind long movies. It's hard to find time to watch them. This movie flew by. For 2.5 hours, it flew by, especially because there was no filler. It started right away. It was stressful right away. So for more than 2 hours watching this movie, you were stressed out trying to wonder where the girls were. I don't know if I want to start rating these or not towards the end. I am just not an authority in movies whatsoever, so I'll probably lay off of that for a while. But I loved it. It was a really big surprise. I'd never heard of it at all. Love Hugh Jackman. Love Jake Gyllenhaal. All the other actors and actresses, I thought, did a fantastic job. I thought the music was great. There was nothing completely over the top. It was just this mellow, atmospheric thing throughout. I'd be curious to just hit up Spotify and just kind of, check out other stuff that this Johan has done, because I really enjoyed it. I hope I didn't forget too much. I hope I didn't piss anybody off. I'm not that smart, and I don't take very good notes. But if you liked the movie, I want you to know that I enjoyed it very much as well. That's really all I have for that. I'm going to send you guys off with a little more music from the movie, and next week will be some kind of album. I have an idea of what I'm going to do, and I'm hoping everybody enjoys it. If I get anybody listening to this that has listened all the way through, please feel free to leave some criticism. I don't know if my email is on any of the profiles on Spotify or YouTube or anything like that, but if anyone has any type of constructive criticism, I am all ears. I have no idea what I'm doing. I started doing this to learn how to do this computer stuff, and I really have very little idea of what I'm doing. But thank you, everybody, for listening. We'll be back for File 6 next week. Thank you.